Hi folks, and welcome to 3-Minute Racquet Reviews. Today's frame is the Babolat Pure Aero 98. In terms of the ground strokes, I'd give this one a 9.5 out of 10. I think this is where it mainly excels. Pretty plush response for a Babolat frame, but just a ton of spin, pop, forgiveness. The ball really sinks into the string bed with a variety of different shots and shoots out with a middle to high launch angle. In terms of the net play, I'd give this an 8 out of 10. I think it's a fine frame at the net. The sweet spot itself is pretty large, so you can get lost in it, in terms of what spots are hot and what spots are a little bit more dead. But in general, I found this to be a fine frame at the net. In terms of the serving, I'd give it an 8.5 out of 10, mainly because there's so much access to spin here. It feels like you can really take a big cut at your kick or slice serve, and then the flat serves have a fair degree of control for an Aero beamed Babolat frame. In terms of the power, I'd give this one an 8.5 out of 10. I think there's a lot of pop on tap, but it's not necessarily as powerful as something like a Pure Drive or Pure Aero 100. In terms of control, I'd give it a 7.5 out of 10. I think it's a fairly controlled frame for an Aero beam designed Babolat, but at the same time, it's not as controlled as other 98 square inch frames on the market that have a thinner beam, are more flexible, and have maybe a better sensation in the string bed. In terms of spin, I'd give this a super high rating of a 9 out of 10. I think there's a lot of spin on tap here. The 16x20 pattern is super open, allows you to take massive cuts without fear of the ball sailing long. And in general, it felt like every shot that I hit had some degree of spin on it. In terms of stability, I'd give this a 9 out of 10. I think these Aero frames, Babolat frames in general, are incredibly stable throughout the hoop. But this one in particular feels really stable even in its stock form. I think famously Alcaraz has used this stock for the 4 majors that he's accumulated using this frame, so there's definitely enough stability on tap there to handle a weight of shot even on the ATP Tour. In terms of the comfort, I'd give this an 8 out of 10. I think it's a pretty plush response. The dampening technology that Babolat's leveraged in this layup definitely makes it more plush than the Aeros of old, the Aero Pro drives, but there still is that classic sort of stiff, maybe a little bit hollow feeling sensation that kind of holds it back from being a super comfortable frame. In terms of the flex profile, I'd classify this one in the upper yoke. I don't think it flexes much, but you can feel it a little bit, especially when you increase your racket head speed. In regards to touch and responsiveness, I'd give this one a 7 out of 10. Generally, I felt like I knew where this ball was when it sunk into the string bed, but I think the Babolat frames across the board tend to lack in this department. In terms of our will it lead category, I think this is a super viable option for all playing levels. Just keep in mind that you're going to get a little less power than a 100 Babolat option. Lastly, on to the cosmetics. I'd give this one an 8 out of 10, mainly because it does look a lot like the original Aero Pro Drive from a distance, but some of the details are a little bit too busy. Thanks everybody for joining us on this racket review today. We'll see you in the next one.